Hello, greetings everyone. Welcome to the weekly backdrop call. This week it's pretty much, it's likely just going to be me here in the Hangouts because Jen is out organizing Bad Camp this week. And so it actually started today. A whole bunch of summits and activities are underway. So today is the beginning of Bad Camp, which means I'm going to be running the backdrop call. So welcome to the call. The backdrop project, what we're trying to do is we're setting out to make a Drupal 8 alternative, essentially. The idea is a new version of Drupal that is on the Drupal 7 architecture with Drupal 8-like features. And what that encompasses basically means some modernization up with HTML5, a new blocks and layouts initiative, views in core, CMI. That kind of functionality is what we're targeting to include in Backdrop 1.0. Our original timeline, or our revised timeline, excuse me, is for release this fall, which pretty much means in the next 6 weeks is the plan. Right now our timeline is looking a little bit tight, but we're still going to try for that date. It's not impossible. It's not outside the realm of possibility. It's just we'll probably need to do some more trimming of our scope in order to make that timeline. And I'll talk about some of those things as I go through the weekly status report. So major initiatives that we're undertaking, there's 3 major initiatives. The first of which is block layouts. Blocks and layouts is in a really good place. We've got a video up on our YouTube channel if you haven't seen it yet. The blocks and layouts new structure is sort of founded upon the layout module. The layout module is essentially a replacement for block module when it comes to structuring and laying out a page. It's super cool. It's built on the same foundation as panels and ctools. So if you're familiar with panels and ctools, it's a lot like that, only it's a lot easier. We simplified it down a huge amount, rewrote the UI and reused the underlying architecture of ctools and panels. So overall, it has the same capabilities, although it's not fully fleshed out yet. But all of the same underlying API, but a lot easier to use UI. So we're super excited about blocks and layouts. It's pretty much probably where we want it to be for release. We could extend it out a lot more with additional blocks and token support and things like that. But likely what we'll see is the initial release of Backdrop will include just all of the blocks that Drupal 7 did, but it has all of the underpinnings for expanding that in future releases. So blocks and layouts, there's still an issue for a bunch of follow-up tasks if you're interested in participating in blocks and layouts. Right now we've been generating a bunch of feedback that's been coming in regarding blocks and layouts. Thank you very much to everybody that's been trying out Backdrop and providing us with feedback on the layout module. But if there's some way that you're looking to participate, there's issue 345 in our GitHub issue queue. 345 is the follow-up list of tasks that we have to undertake in Backdrop for layouts. Let's see. The next major initiative is configuration management, or regularly referred to as CMI for Configuration Management Initiative. And CMI is looking really good. It's probably the one major hangup we have in making a release for Backdrop 1.0. Some things have been in configuration management for a really long time. Things like views, layouts, as soon as they were created, they were written directly against CMI. Most variables have been converted, and some other base systems have been in place for a long time. But we still have several major systems that aren't converted yet, and it's probably our biggest holdup for release. Like I said, we've got about 6 weeks left before our anticipated release date. So we've got a little bit of work to make sure that these things get converted and fully tested before that time. So recently we converted, let's see, in the past, it was week before last, we converted 3 major systems: roles, node types, and vocabularies, which is great. Those are all of the major entity types in Drupal 7, we now have those all converted to CMI, so they're all saving into individual configuration files. New this week, at the end of last week and during last week's status call, I mentioned that we've been making a lot of progress in fields, and fields have now been fully converted, and they're also in the current master or 1.x branch of Backdrop. So if you check out Backdrop today, we've got a lot of things starting configuration management now. All of the major crucial systems, but there's still a couple sort of peripheral ones, maybe not so peripheral. Menus, languages, text formats, and actions. And then a few lingering variables here and there are the remaining things to be converted to CMI. So some of those should be pretty straightforward. Text formats especially. Menus should be okay. Actions shouldn't be too hard. Languages could be a bit of a doozy. But after converting so many things recently, like fields only took 2 weeks, I'm still really optimistic that we might be able to put all of this together before we want to release. So CMI looking good, but definitely the most important thing that we have on our plate in order to make it so that we can release the software. The last major initiative is views in core. Views have been in core and Backdrop for 6 or 8 months or so. So they've been there for a long time. But we don't have everything converted to actually fully utilize them yet. We still have a whole bunch of administrative listings, front-end listings, blocks, all kinds of things that could potentially be used or could be converted to views, but we don't have those in place. If we need to release Backdrop 1.0 without these things converted to views, that's acceptable, but it would really be preferable if we could get these things converted to views so that right out of the box, people can come in and immediately customize their administrative interfaces as well as their front-end displays without needing to create new views. It's always much easier to edit and manipulate than it is to create something new. Okay, that's it for our main initiatives. They're all coming along pretty well. Blocks and layouts, config, and views. We also have some other things that we always try to keep tabs on. One of them is making sure that we keep up with Drupal, both Drupal 7 and Drupal 8 where possible. Backporting or cross-porting features. Let's see, the last release of Drupal 7 was 7.32. The main thing was the security update, or the only thing, commonly referred to as Drupalgeddon, which was a major SQL injection attack. We've ported that to we've ported that to Backdrop pretty much right after it was released. A new version of Drupal 7 is coming out today, in theory, 7.33. Which looks like it's just normal maintenance releases, but it has a really interesting feature in it. They backported the theme debug mode, which basically injects a whole bunch of HTML comments into your templates to tell you where markup is coming from. They backported that into Drupal 7, which looks like a really interesting feature for us and something that we could easily port into Backdrop, considering we're still running the same theming engine as Drupal 7. We should be able to move over that functionality really pretty easily. So that's exciting, and it's something that we can port over to Backdrop here in the near future. Let's see, Drupal 8 backports. We used to have a list of all Drupal 8 backports, but there were just so many of them, like literally thousands, that we've gone down from like having actual lists of these things to just sort of selecting them a la carte. And the two areas in which we're actively backporting things is HTML5 items as well as JavaScript updates. All of this stuff is optional but nice to have. In the HTML5 category, especially if you look at issue 200 in the GitHub issue queue, there's one of the items is near and dear to my heart, which is adding the support for multiple file uploads to the managed file element. It would be really great into Backdrop. Again, it doesn't have to happen for the initial release, but it would just be great to have the ability to upload multiple files all at once through a file element in Backdrop. Okay, we also have a number of minor projects, just things that we're just trying to get as far as we can before release. One of them is separating the identity from Drupal. We've already done a really pretty good job of doing this. We've got our own logos, we've got our own styling, we've got our own installer now. We're doing a lot of work to try to separate ourselves and make ourselves a separate project with a separate. There's an overall issue for this at issue 201 for rebranding the administration theme. We really like 7, but it would be great if we just didn't look like 7, if Backdrop had its own appearance for administrating. So issue 201 is where we're looking at doing that. I don't know, it looks like for the time being, there's a good chance that we'll just be with 7 for our initial release. And then later we'll work on building out a new administration theme. Theme system cleanup, as many of you know, was the leader of the Twig initiative in Drupal 8. We're not going to have Twig in Backdrop, but we do have the ability to do a lot of theme system cleanup without swapping out the actual language that the templates use. So a bunch of things that we're trying to work on, basically consolidating a whole bunch of templates, reducing layers of complexity, trying to remove the process layer. There's all kinds of things that we're attempting to do to try to simplify theming in Backdrop, even if we're going to be using Twig. User interface improvements. There's actually been some good progress here in the past week. We've got some ongoing issues, like we want to add a rich text editor to core. Probably not going to happen in the initial release, but can be there for later. Terminology updates, those continue rolling along. Various names that we're changing and reorganization. Issue 127, if you want to look at that entire list of renaming and terminology items. But in the past week, we started a weekly design hangout. I guess it's bi-weekly, actually. So last week we had one. This week we don't. Next week we'll have another one. And we have a new volunteer that joined in to say that he wanted to develop some human interface guidelines, which will ultimately kind of turn into kind of a style guide for Backdrop overall as a project. So he just posted his initial draft of things. Let's see, it's at issue 390. The human interface guidelines that he's put together, and it's really pretty exciting. Like, it's a good start. There's not a whole lot of solid development there, but the skeleton development is now all in place. So thank you very much, Gutam, for putting that together. We're really excited to see where that goes and how we can implement it. Let's see. Every week, we like to have this section in the meeting for updates from the Project Management Committee. The Project Management Committee basically is a conflict resolution group that when any issue gets escalated or we can't make a decision on something, it can be escalated to the PMC for decisions. But so far, like, we've got so few people putting stuff forward that pretty much anything that comes forward will immediately just kind of most of the time go in. So we haven't had any conflicts of any kind recently, so there's no updates for this section. We have a number of peripheral things that we're working on besides the software itself. Mostly other websites that all integrate together with Backdrop. There's the API website at api.backdropcms.org. And right now it is up and it exists and it automatically synchronizes with the Backdrop code base. But we need to flesh out that site quite a bit more. It needs a new design. It needs change records. It needs documentation. So we're working on building out all of those things to make it so that developers can move or can look up the code in the API Backdrop in an easy place all at once. Let's see. We also have an update server that we're trying to put together. The update server is essentially what update module in Backdrop connects to say whether or not any of your contributed modules or core itself need to be updated. This has been stuck for a while. We've got some plans for how to implement this. But it looks like what we'll probably end up doing is just shimming out the update module in Backdrop to have it connect to a particular URL, but that URL probably will just return no updates or no known changes until we can actually stub it out or fill it out with an actual response. So we'll probably ship Backdrop with update module, but it'll connect to like a shim basically until we can manage to actually build out the update server on backdropcms.org. Let's see, also related to updates and contributed modules, we also really want to make a official GitHub service for Backdrop CMS. The idea is that we would organize contrib a lot like jQuery plugins. If you go to plugins.jquery.com, it's essentially an aggregation of all jQuery plugins that have officially been registered. But all of those plugins are simply registered through GitHub itself. We're planning on doing something similar, although with a little bit more of a hybrid model where projects can register themselves through GitHub just by enabling the service, or later, after they've registered it through GitHub, they could also log into backdropcms.org and do some additional additional editing if they want to say something specifically on the project page. So that's the idea. We have a way to go to implement that, but for the time being, contrib basically is going to be a little bit ad hoc. It's basically going to be various projects distributed through GitHub, and then we'll work on aggregating those all together after the launch of Backdrop. We're also doing some work on the flagship site, backdropcms.org. We're still working towards building out a new redesign and making it so that you can do things like you can search modules and themes, showcase, site provider directory. Like we'll work on building out the overall backdropcms.org website as we go forward. Let's see, sprints. Every Thursday we have sprints. That's today. I'm available in IRC in Pound Backdrop. Jen is not around this week as she's running BadCamp, but we'll be doing sprints as usual today after this call. You can join us in IRC in Pound Backdrop. In real life, BadCamp is this week, and so we're going to be at BadCamp. We're giving a session actually this Saturday at BadCamp. If you're in the Bay Area, you can drop by and watch our presentation. Let's see, it's Saturday afternoon, I think. Hang on, I'm not really sure what time it is. It is 2:30 in the Rainbow Road room. If you're in San Francisco for BadCamp, you can check us out there. And we'll also be doing code sprints all day Sunday. So if you go to the code sprint room, we'll be having a Backdrop table that you can come and join us at. We're also giving a talk at Symphony Live in Madrid later this month, November 27th. And then we've got plans to be at, but we probably won't be speaking at the next couple of DrupalCons, but we'll keep you posted as those dates draw closer. Okay, well, that does it for the weekly Backdrop status meeting. If you'd like to participate, just join us in the GitHub issue queue or in IRC, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks for watching.